Some would say that Bitcoin has been perpetually stuck in the 90s, like our parents. All right, sorry, Boomer. Sometimes I'm a little rough on y'all. One reason for this might be because Bitcoin is bracing for a market drop ahead of an announcement on December 18th. Japan is going to raise interest rates 75 basis points. The last time they did this, Bitcoin dumped 20% in 12 hours. But it could be manipulation too. It seems kind of odd that every time we have a 2 to 3% bump in Bitcoin's price, we see the amount go down by 2 to 3% in the following 24 hours. Every day, Bitcoin has been dumping 2 to 3% at market open, like clockwork. And some people are pointing towards Jane Street, a classic market manipulator, who actually owns one of the largest positions in IBIT. They dump the price at the open, re-enter lower, and buy Bitcoin at a discount. This same firm has literally been banned from the Indian stock market exchange for manipulating prices. Regulators are seizing almost $1 billion for manipulating securities. Is Jane Street behind Bitcoin's price stagnation? CIO Jeffrey Park of ProCap Financial has another opinion. He's saying it's partly due to Bitcoin OGs and IBIT options. Others say it's because we're heading into a midterm election. So the question is this normal market mechanics or is this market manipulation? And should you be worried? Today, we're going to break this down simply to help you understand what's going on behind the scenes. This is Dante Cook with Bitcoin Simply. Let's go. It's a fact. Bitcoin dumps at the open regularly, consistently, and oddly. 2 to 3% in fact. Most of Bitcoin's gains happen after hours. After all, it only trades for 30% of the time during normal market hours, but 70% of the time out of market hours. So literally, if you just bought Bitcoin intraday, well, you're making less gains than if you just waited till the market closed and you bought it after hours. Someone is even looking at opening an ETF to take advantage of this. The NGHT or Night Bitcoin ETF, where it harvests the volatility that happens after hours. And this could just be market manipulation tactics from firms like Jane Street, who, like we said, have been manipulating markets in India and other places across the world and are starting to be fined and banned for these same activities. This sort of market arbitrage has been happening behind closed doors, and we don't have the tools as everyday retail investors to do this. But I recently watched a clip from Samir Varma, a theoretical physicist turned hedge fund trader, who talks about this same exact opportunity that I think could be taking place in Bitcoin, just from bigger players who have better access to capital.
If you take, say, the S&P 500 ETF, SPY, and you divide it up into its intraday return, open to close, and its overnight return, close to open, you will find that more than 100% of the return of the SPY takes place overnight. i.e., on average, the SPY goes down during the day.
Interesting.
Yeah, exactly. But taking advantage of that is pretty difficult. And the reason is you can certainly buy, market on open and then, buy market on close, sell market on open. You can do that. But there's only a limited amount that you can do. That's the first issue, before you start to move the market too much. And the second is, of course, that you are then subject to, the reason it's positive, of course, is that you're getting paid for taking overnight risk. So that's an example of an edge that exists in the market that's pretty difficult to arbitrage, and yet it's right there, and you can see it in the data.
Jeffrey Parks, former CIO at Bitwise and now CIO at ProCap Financial, has a different opinion about what might be going on. There's a divergence in how much people are willing to pay, or the premium, for upside potential in Bitcoin, aka the options in spot Bitcoin. And when you couple this with the fact that OG Bitcoiners aren't necessarily selling all their Bitcoin, that wouldn't account for the selling that we're seeing in the market. They're actually selling covered calls, meaning they want to earn income on the Bitcoin that they've actually accumulated over the years. When they sell calls, that's downward pressure. It's monetization, but it also kills momentum. Market makers on the other side have to hedge this potential upside scenario. And this creates what they call a reversion to the mean, meaning that if Bitcoin were to go too high too fast or too low too fast, well, the price would blow out. And so they hedge. When Bitcoin dips, they buy. When Bitcoin rips, well, they sell to hedge their protection. And the options interest in IBIT from Jeffrey Park's article is absolutely massive, almost $50 billion, or half of the total assets under management in IBIT total. This means that a lot of price action that's happening in IBIT and Bitcoin in general is being driven by options and not actually spot buying. That's one theory, free market capitalism happening. It could be Japan. Every time Japan hikes rates, well, Bitcoin sells off. This is called the unwinding of the Japanese yen carry trade. For years, investors borrowed cheap yen and they plowed that into stocks, Bitcoin, and other assets, which inflated the asset prices. When the cost of that capital goes up, they have to sell that yen and unwind those leveraged positions, meaning they then have to sell off the other assets to pay for their liabilities in the yen. And Bitcoin, like always, is the first to be hit in global markets when things unwind or when things change. These are all short-term things. And what you should understand as a long-term Bitcoin investor is that these things shouldn't matter. What you should be thinking about are the long-term structural advantages and opportunities that are being presented in the market. Listen to this clip from Coinbase CEO Brian Armstrong about the structural changes happening in Bitcoin, specifically with the US government.
Is it fair to say the sophistication and the maturity of this market has really reached a more advanced stage now, though? People are more trusting in the tradability of these assets?
100%. And I'd like to think Coinbase has helped move that along a little bit over the last decade, but we're in a much better place. It's regulatory clarity emerging. I mean, the United States government has a strategic Bitcoin reserve now, right? Like, what bigger kind of endorsement might you have of like, this is here to stay? And then the largest financial institutions and fintech companies in the world are all integrating crypto in some way, shape, or form, whether it's stablecoin payments or eventually they'll be raising money on chain, doing corporate debt on chain. So I think at this point, crypto is here to stay, and we'll look back at 2025 as that year where the regulatory clarity finally happened.
You also then have to listen to what's happening behind the scenes from this clip with Michael Saylor when he presented in the Middle East to Bitcoiners and people looking to get into Bitcoin all across the world.
Why is Bitcoin digital capital? First of all, because Donald J. Trump is the Bitcoin president. Donald J. Trump says he is intent on making America the Bitcoin superpower, the crypto capital of the world, the leader in digital assets. And David Sachs, who works for him, in March of 2025, this year, said Bitcoin is special. Bitcoin is an asset without an issuer. It is the dominant digital commodity in the world. This administration designated Bitcoin as digital gold. And of course, it's not just the president. It's the vice president, who I've met, who said that. It's the secretary of Treasury, who I've met, who has said that. It is the head of the SEC, who I've met, who has said that. It is the head of national intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, who I've met, who said that. It's the head of commerce, a small business administration, Kelly Loeffler, who I've met, who said that. It's Bill Pulte, who runs the Federal Housing Administration and regulates $5 trillion or $6 trillion of home mortgages, who I've met, who said that. It's RFK, who not that long ago wanted the US government to buy 4 million Bitcoin, who I've met, who believes it. It's the incoming head of the CFTC, Mike Selig. It's David Sachs himself, the crypto czar and the Bitcoin czar. It's Howard Lutnick, the Commerce Secretary. And it's Kash Patel, the head of the FBI. So you have a profound consensus amongst everyone running the United States. And the most important thing is that the United States is the most influential financial regulator in the world. And whatever the US banking system does and the US security market does ripples through South America, it ripples through Africa, it ripples through Europe, it ripples through the Middle East, it goes to Canada, it goes to Australia, it even goes to Hong Kong. Even the Chinese will copy what the US is doing. So it's very, very profound inflection.
Every major official and appointed leader in the United States government is on board with Bitcoin, saying that it's a unique asset with potential that we should capture and recognize in the United States. This clip is profound, and if this doesn't cause you to be bullish on Bitcoin, then I don't know what will. As we go any further as to why these short-term price movements should not matter to you and your long thesis in Bitcoin, well, let's thank our sponsors. Ledn has been the leader in Bitcoin-backed loans since 2018, allowing you to unlock liquidity in your Bitcoin without selling your Bitcoin, something we talked about earlier in the episode. One of the ways you can do that is if you want a $1,000 fiat loan without getting a credit check or needing credit approval, well, you post $2,000 in Bitcoin collateral. Your loan is funded in less than 6 hours typically, and it's because do you have the Bitcoin or don't you have the Bitcoin? Your Bitcoin is then held in cold storage in a wallet address that you can see live direct in the platform. And you can repay the loan at any point in time. And when you want to, you just withdraw that Bitcoin that you posted directly to your wallet. I've done this myself. It literally happens in hours. They've done this for $9 billion worth of loans to tens of thousands of customers. Go to learn.ledn.ao/simply to get started. One of the ways you can become sovereign in your journey is by working with a coach to help you to learn how to get your Bitcoin from exchanges, remove your Bitcoin so that you have actual Bitcoin in cold storage that you can verify and you can pass down to future generations. Get a coach from the Bitcoin Way. They'll walk you through how to do this step by step, confidently, safely, and securely. Go to thebitcoinway.com/simplybitcoin to get started.
You've got credit spreads at all-time types. You've got the reflation trade going on. I strongly believe PMIs are going higher. And for me, that means that Bitcoin is just kind of, whether it stays here between 85 and 92 for another couple of weeks, when we get into the beginning part of next year, I think we're going to see Bitcoin back above 100. And I think the surprise will be back to all-time highs in the first quarter.
Jordy Visser has a theory as to why he believes that we're stuck between 85 and 92K and what he sees for what's coming in Q1 of 2026. He believes that we're going to hit all-time highs. And I don't disagree with him. One of the reasons that long-term you should be structurally bullish on Bitcoin is because Bitcoin is digital gold. It is the digital version of a 20th century asset that we used and relied upon for years in order to have checks and balances in a system that is increasingly moving to fiat. Well, how do you have checks and balances in a digital world when you can create fiat dollars ad infinitum by pressing a button? Well, you have a digital backstop or security that can't be minted out of thin air that requires energy to do so, which is Bitcoin. And this is why Michael Saylor says that it will be 10x, 100x larger than gold, because we're not going back from digital to analog.
Digital gold, it's going to accelerate the migration of capital from physical gold to digital gold. Bitcoin lives in cyberspace, no tariffs in cyberspace. The big appeal of Bitcoin is it's not physical, it doesn't have weight, you can settle anywhere with anybody in a few minutes. And so gold has always been too heavy, too slow, and you can't really ship it across an ocean. And if you do, now you're getting tariffs. So I really think it just reminds everybody why the digital version of gold is better than actual physical gold. And I think it's going to catalyze a new wave of institutional adoption of Bitcoin.
I expect Bitcoin to emerge as the dominant digital monetary network in the world, and it is the world's reserve capital. So I think it'll grow from the $2 trillion to $20 trillion to $200 trillion over the next 20 to 30 years. Oh. I don't think gold will do that. I think that Bitcoin will be 10x bigger than gold.
One of the reasons why you should also be bullish on Bitcoin is because it helps us get out of debt slavery. John Adams has a great quote. There are two ways to enslave a country, one with the sword and another with debt. We are a country laden with debt. And one of the ways that you can get out of debt is by having assets and increasing in productivity that outpaces your debt. An asset that inflates faster than your money deflates. You short the dollar whenever you take out the loan, and you go long on whatever asset you put into, whether that's real estate or in this case, Bitcoin. It's something that you should be considering, regardless of whether we're stuck at 90K at this moment. We won't be stuck here for forever. One of the ways you can continually grow in your Bitcoin stack and your Bitcoin journey is by continuing to accumulate Bitcoin 24 hours a day. And you can do that through Bitcoin mining by working with a company like Saz Mining. You buy a state-of-the-art mining machine which they manage and they host with no middlemen, no markup. Sats flow directly to your wallet. You can get tax write-offs by depreciating the assets themselves, and you also get Sats while you sleep so that you're earning Bitcoin after hours and not just when it's manipulated during market hours, which we covered earlier. Go to the QR code on the screen to get started with Saz Mining. Thank you for joining in today. Regardless of what happens with Bitcoin, whether it's market manipulation from Jane Street, whether it's IBIT options and Bitcoin OGs selling covered calls, you should be structurally long-term bullish on Bitcoin. This is Dante Cook with Bitcoin Simply. Happy stacking.